Hi all, and welcome to this ADN special session. The title of the special session will be Disaster Loss and Damage from the Perspective of Future Leaders. We're very excited to have you here. The session will run from 11 to 12:30 British summertime. And I'm Julia Christiana. I'm very excited to have you here today. I'm a future leader at the Avoidable Network. I just want to run you really quickly through the housekeeping rules for this session. So I want to make sure that you have your microphone muted. That will allow our speakers to be heard clearly. And if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat box. There will be a part of this event where you will manage to ask. This session will be recorded and will be published online. If you do not wish to be seen, please do turn off your camera. And each section of the session will be timed. There will be a pre and post session poll, which the pre-session poll will happen just in a moment. And then I want to run you through a timetable really, really quickly. Thank you, Lauren. So we will have a quick poll right now, a pre-poll to see just how much you know about the topic we'll be discussing today. Then we'll have a first panel. This session will be comprised of two panels. One will be a panel of experts, and the second one will be a panel of future leaders, which really makes this an ADN special session. And then we'll have a few remarks, and then poll and concluding remarks again. So I'm very excited to introduce Dr. Hideyuki Shirashita, founding president of the ADN of the Avoidable Death Network, and he is going to give an introduction to ADN.
Thank you very much. Can I share my screen? Right. Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay, thank you very much. So thank you very much for your introduction. So my name is Hideyuki Shirashita. As already introduced, I'm one of the founding president of Avoidable Disease Network. Another founding president is Professor Nivedita Ray-Bennett at University of Leicester. So I'm also working as associate professor at Kansas University, and also this year I became visiting associate professor DPRI Kyoto University. So first of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Professor Anil Kumar Gupta and Mr. Bisha Pasanak for kindly serving as chairs of this session. I understand that they will also share their perspective with us. I am also deeply thankful to the future leaders who will be sharing their ideas and perspective with us today. And of course, I would like to thank all of you for your participation. Your presence here means a lot, and I hope this session will be a meaningful and inspiring experience for all. So before we begin this session, I would like to take a moment to briefly introduce our initiative, Avoidable Disease Network. So ADN was launched on 12th March 2019 at the Global Alliance for Disaster Risk Institute gathering at Kyoto University in Japan. So it was started by just three of us, Nivedita, Denis Kosel, and myself. The launch was small scale, but it was held in a truly heartwarming atmosphere. We have some of our mentors there. So Avoidable Disease Network is a diverse, dynamic, inclusive, and innovative global local membership network of experts, practitioners, and researchers interested in avoiding human disease from natural hazards, natural triggered technological hazards, and human-made disasters in mainly low and middle-income countries. But our approach is not exclusive, so we warmly welcome anyone who is working to reduce avoidable disease, including in high-income countries. So ADN is not an NGO. ADN is a network led by two universities, University of Leicester in the UK, where Nivedita works, and Kansas University in Japan, where I work. The efforts of the Avoidable Disease Network have been recognized by various international organizations. For example, ADN is a member of United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, the Sendai Framework Voluntary Commitment. Also, ADN is a part of UN OCHA's networks and partnerships goals. So ADN is continuously growing. So we started just 3 members, but now we have more than 1,000 members from 94 countries. So this means the ADN members are in nearly half of the UN recognized 195 countries. So we have, lots of the representatives from organizations. So our members represent more than 700 organizations from all sectors, and we have 3 chapters in India, Bangladesh, and Oman. So ADN are carrying out several projects, but due to time constraints, today I will only introduce the global campaign called IAD4AD. So on 12th March 2023, the global campaign International Awareness Day for Avoidable Disease, IAD4AD, was launched by Ms. Mami Mizutori, former special representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction. The launch event was organized in collaboration with the city of Izumi-Otsu in Osaka, Japan. So the purpose of the global campaign is to raise awareness of disaster disease and missing persons while both capturing their impact on people's lives and by providing a platform wherein policymakers, practitioners, and researchers have the ability to make more informed decisions that lead to lives saved. The last 2 years, we encourage our regional coordinators to mark IAD4AD. The theme was Do One Thing. Each regional coordinator celebrated the day in their own way. For me personally, last year, I hosted the screening of disaster prevention films made by junior champions of Haba Elementary School in Osaka. And this year, I celebrated the day with my Taiwanese colleagues in Taiwan. They became new regional coordinators. So anyone can join the campaign. So let's celebrate the day together in the future. So for more information, please visit our SNS website, and also IAD4AD, we have a separated website. So that's it. Thank you very much.
You need to run the poll.
All right. Okay. So
maybe Lauren, you could.
Can I launch the poll? Yes, this one. What is session plastic? Which one? There are so many. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Right. So during each special session, we always ask the participant to participate 2 polls. This is not for evaluating the speakers at all, but for measuring the impact of special sessions. And we have, this first poll at the beginning of the session and the second poll at the end. We will compare the results from 2 polls, and the result will be shared at the ADN website. So please vote your thoughts. Thank you.
Can you see the number of responses, Tiki? I can't.
Already, so 100% answered. So now, yeah. Okay. So, okay. Can you see the result?
Yeah, we can see the result.
Okay, so this is the result of question number 1. Do you have any prior knowledge of the topics for today's session? So the majority group is little. The second question, current knowledge. So, yeah. This is the result. So yeah, let's see, how the evaluation will be changed. Okay, thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you.
So, can we take a group photo?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay, so So dear participant, if you don't mind, please turn on your camera and let's take group photo before we have a main session. Thank you. So Julia, can you take the screenshot, or Lauren?
Yep, I can do it.
All right, okay, thank you. Big smile, please.
We have 2 pages of people, so just do it again.
Okay.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, over to you, Julia.
Thank you so much. So now I would like us to begin with the first panel. So Professor Anil Kumar and Mr. Vishal Pathak, I invite you to comment and yeah, let's commence.
Thank you, Julia. So I will be chairing this panel. So first of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our audience. Thank you for your company. So I hope you will enjoy this session. But I would like to thank Professor Anil Gupta for coming up with the idea for this session. It is Professor Gupta's idea to show off our future leaders. Our future leaders are the futures for sustainable development, risk reduction, especially in low and middle income countries. So we have 2 panels. So panel 1 comprises Vishal's presentation and Professor Gupta. Then we have second panel, quite a few different range of speakers of our future leaders. That session will be chaired by Vishal. And then we have a third panel, which will be chaired by Professor Anil Gupta, where he will summarize some of the key points from this presentation and then also welcome Q&A from the audience. And I understand the audience is a very learned audience because that also gives us an opportunity to learn from you through your questions and comments and observations. So please feel free to use the chat box, drop your message. We have a dedicated ADN team who is keeping an eye on the chat box. So today's session is on loss and damage. So our first 2 panelists are Vishal Pathak. So Vishal is based at the All India Institute of Disaster Management in India, based in Gujarat. And then we have Professor Anil Gupta from IIT-Roorkee in New Delhi. Now, as you would know, loss and damage has really picked up a huge momentum from the Glasgow COP. And after that, gradually loss and damage has been getting more mainstreamed, and now we have the loss and damage fund. But I think it is important to understand, what are we losing? What are the damages people are experiencing? And what does those losses and damages look like at a grassroots level, at a local level, at how households experience those losses and damages, and what policies and international frameworks that we have. So our speakers will provide some information around those topics. Now, I just came back from Bangladesh and Japan. I was out, for a fortnight. It was quite a hectic travel, but I really learned something in Japan. I'll be able to share before I invite our learned panelists. So number 1 is that according to the Sendai Monitor framework, a report was been released earlier this year. It tells us that in the period between 2005 to 2014 compared to 2014 and 2023, Sendai Goal A, which is reducing the number of disaster deaths, they found that the number of disaster deaths have gone down, given the fact that disasters have increased by 5-fold in that same period. On the other hand, if you look into Sendai Goal Target B, which is reducing the number of people affected by disasters, in the same period has gone up by 71%. So there is a lot of celebration, which is rightly so, that the number of disaster deaths have gone down. which is fantastic despite increase in the number of disasters, but the number of affected people have also gone by 71%. Now, these are the survivors, but what happens to the survivors? Because they have lost everything, often house, properties, assets. Sometimes they may not have any insurance, so what happens to those people? And that's what ADN is interested in. We're interested in indirect deaths. We're interested in disaster-related deaths, and we are interested in those deaths, we call them avoidable disaster deaths. And I was in Japan, as I said, and was trying to find out more about disaster-related deaths and avoidable deaths, and I found out there's something called, they have a policy or an act or provision of disaster condolences grant, and it was launched in 1990. It is the only country in the world that is meticulously documenting and recording disaster-related deaths or avoidable deaths. So we have started research on that. Professor Gupta is part of it. Many of our members, ADN members, are part of it. So I would say that, it is fantastic to celebrate that the number of disaster deaths have gone down, but on the other hand, 71% of people are being affected. Number of people affected by disasters have gone by 71%. And we also found something similar in the Caribbean region when we did research, that the number of affected people have gone up, which means every day, more than 1 million people are pushed into poverty, deprivation, scarcity, hunger, illness, disease relating and leading to avoidable disaster deaths. So I think with that note, I am going to invite Professor Anil Gupta, and then I will invite Mr. Vishal Pathak. So Professor Gupta has been doing research on the methodology of, identifying losses, economic loss, non-economic loss. Then we have damages, but his interest is more on non-economic sides, which is human losses and things like that. So he has got really in-depth understanding. He has published his work, and I have read them. I have grown by reading those work. So it is an absolute honor to have Professor Gupta to give us a little bit of an insight. What's going on, the way the UN wants us to track loss and damage, but is our methodologies robust enough to capture those losses and damages? Maybe you could give us your perspective from India. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nivedita. And first of all, my compliments and best wishes to all the future leaders. And as this workshop, the primary objective was basically the showcasing these insights and the thought process and strengths of the future leaders. And being part of the Avoidable Death Network, which has been promoted by the University of Leicester, and then a number of partners which are now part across the continents. And so this is a wonderful occasion. I have few points when we regarding the loss and damage, and there are certain issues regarding the understanding of the loss and damage also, that place to place, country to country, and disaster to disaster. If we go deeper into the damage assessment, we find that the understanding and recognition of the damage has been varying. So that is also very important context to begin this discourse. For example, now we claim that globally and also in India, the loss of human life has decreased, whereas the loss of economic costs, economic damages have increased. Herein, how economic costs have increased, I think then there are a lot of uncertainties involved in understanding the economic costs. For example, there are certain type of damages and losses where the economic cost cannot be easily assigned. For example, the losses to the human comfort, the losses to ecosystem level damages or ecosystem services, the loss of ecosystem services. So that's very important. Second thing, when we say that losses to life, and we consider that losses to life is a loss, many times it is not primarily an economic loss. But if we look at the various case studies which are available now, very recent past, some papers have come up, that assigning the monetary value to the impact, because in the aftermath of any kind of disasters, that how human life loss can also be assigned economic value. So that is also very important kind of case studies which have emerged, and that is also an important aspect, because if we just do not limit this consideration to the death, but the morbidity. So morbidity has certainly an economic cost, and a very, very significant cost, and that can be a primary, secondary, tertiary, and higher order also. Second thing, when we talk about the losses, so this is an area that there are lot of basically gaps in clear understanding about the losses. And one thing I would like to say here, that many times even the kind of confusions that arise, that losses to whom and gains to whom. I think that is also a very important thing, that sometimes there are no uniform the universal recognition that this should be considered as a loss, because sometimes the losses to small holders, losses to a small infrastructure, losses to small entrepreneurs, maybe a gain for other kind of entrepreneurs, other kind of business opportunities. So that has also, we have seen in the period of COVID also, that some type of businesses vanished, but new startups and new businesses have come up. So basically, we need to look at the kind of methodology, that how do we really be very clear that which kind of baseline we are going to consider here, and to see that what is the incremental cost and what is the basically that how much losses are there. And as I referred to the ecosystem losses, so that's also very important, that when they are and this is the period of UN decade for the ecosystem restoration also, and as yet the ecosystem losses are not properly captured in the aftermath of disaster, because the primary focus is the built up, primary focus is the infrastructure, primary focus to little extent is industry, but they not all kind of businesses also. The third thing in loss and damage domain is related with finance. So one thing is majorly focused that insufficient finance. But I think what is the inadequately discussed and inadequately addressed issue, and the experience I would bring from the India itself, that India has created a robust financial mechanism, the availability of finance for post-disaster the activities, including disaster recovery. But what is the huge gap area, that even if the finance is available, what is the institutional and people's capacity to utilize that finance to address the recovery needs? I think that is also very, very important, that do we have the mechanisms? Do we have the people with technical skills? Do we have those kind of competencies in our institutions to create those projects, to undertake monitoring, that whether that finances have been properly utilized in a correct direction, and what is the outcome of those recovery programs? The third thing is lateral finance. So what are the lateral windows of finance? For example, CSR interventions, for example, the philanthropic. The next point is very important, that is the baseline data. If we really want to have something readily available, and we want that the post-disaster damage assessment should be done very quickly, we need to have a uniform and recognizable, acceptable form of baseline data. That's very important, particularly in developing countries. We find highly undulating terrain. We find good examples also, but we find the challenging scenarios also. And the next aspect is basically that when we talk about loss and damage, it is not only about assessment, or it is not only about monitoring. The addressing is about how do we really prevent it, and how do we use the baseline information to create effective plans to reduce loss and damage. And I think the coming COP30 is going to focus on this. That past 3 COPs, we have been talking about the improved assessments, improving methodologies. Yes, still we are very far behind basically to improve to reach that kind of a perfection in our methodology. But now we also have to start giving adequate or even more emphasis on preventing loss and damage. And there, what kind of redundancies and what kind of critical infrastructure we need to safeguard. For example, the hospital infrastructure. If the health infrastructure itself is the primary victim of a disaster, how are we going to really talk about the reducing loss and damage? And the last point, the ICARS intervention. That two interventions I will talk about very, very briefly in few seconds. One is that annual exercise ICARS has started in India. That the annual report on disaster risk recovery and disaster risk resilience and recovery. So in 1 year span, what is the changing landscape of risk? What has been done by various agencies, including the government and non-government actors, and how the recovery programs have been successful or what the gaps are there. And the second is the annual adaptation dossier. That what has been done, because loss and damage, this theme has emerged on the key focus on the extreme events. So I think these 2 points I wanted to refer here in. So thank you very much, and over to Chair Dr. Nivedita for taking the agenda forward.
This is fantastic, Professor Gupta. We will take up some of the points during the Q&A session. So I would like to invite Vishal Pathak. So Vishal, please share a few key points from All India Institute of Disaster Mitigation Institution. And I know you have been doing some grassroots work, working with high-risk population and coming up with novel methodology to mitigate the impact on this really high-risk population. So we are really looking forward to listening to your presentation. So over to you. Thank you. So you have about 7 minutes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nivedita, and also my respect to Professor Anil Gupta. A couple of points really very strong you mentioned, so I'm going to just touch of them and few from the ground level. We have long worked on disaster loss and damage from climate extremes such as flood, cyclone, and heavy rainfall events that trigger visible and often immediate destruction. Many advances have been made in managing these risks through early warning system. Now we have about cyclone, flood, and many other disasters. Resilient infrastructure also it has been promoted and strengthened, and also about the community response mechanism of these climate extreme events. However, today we must talk about an emerging challenge that is no longer emerging. It is already here. I'm speaking about extreme heat. Extreme heat is often invisible. It does not leave broken bridges or flooded roads, but its impact is deep and growing. It steals hours of safe work, disrupts education, reduces food productivity, and silently burns the health system of cities and villages alike. The way we understand and address loss and damage from extreme heat must now change. And here, the role of future leader really emerging, and also they are utilizing this opportunity. At the All India Disaster Mitigation Institute and through the Avoidable Deaths Network, we are seeing how methods to manage heat-related risk are beginning to evolve. Let me share and offer 3 key method-based approaches that can guide us forward. First, we need to localize heat risk assessment, already shared by Professor Gupta about the context and local. The approaches needs to be vary from place to place. National averages hide the real suffering experienced by people in informal settlements, farms, and factories. Local heat maps and vulnerability surveys are very crucial in this situation. Second, anticipatory action systems must be made operational. We cannot wait for people to collapse on the streets. We must act on forecast by deploying cool zones, shifting work and school hours, and securing hydration for those in need. AIDMI is time to time conducting appreciative inquiry, and we witness and observe so many interesting adaptation measures and anticipatory actions by community. All these required to capture and widely disseminated to strengthen further. Third, better data on non-economic loss is essential. Extreme heat affects mental health, damages local tradition, and erodes daily well-being in ways that numbers often misses. We need indicators that reflect these realities. With this, I'm stopping here, and also would like to mention that at AIDMI and ADN, we have seen the power of low cost solution, from reflective roof coating to hundreds heat sensors. These are examples of how simple methods can reduce profound risk when led by those close to the problem. Thank you so much. Over to Dr. Nivedita.
Thank you, Vishal. That's absolutely amazing. And just for the audience's information, we recently started a collaborative work with AIDMI, which is through the case station. We call it Ahmedabad Case Station for Avoidable Heatwave Deaths. And this case station, what it does is offers every 6 months outreach workshops for this high-risk population to increase awareness about how to mitigate, how to adapt, how they can change their risk behaviors. I think that's the way forward, the localization and frugal innovation, because the budget cuts happening everywhere across the continent, the way we are moving. So I don't think the budgets are going to increase in near future. So all we could do through our works and outreach activities is empower the high-risk population by developing their capacity through knowledge, through awareness, and also learning from them. So I think that was fantastic. Thank you very much to our fantastic panel members. And with that note, I'm going to close this panel and we will move on to the next panel. But I will request the audience to keep your comments. If you want, you can drop it on the chat box and Professor Gupta will pick it up during the Q&A session. So this concludes the panel 1. And I will now invite Vishal back to chair panel 2. Over to you, Vishal, and thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much. Very interesting at this stage, very interesting. Now we are looking forward to hear from our future leaders. But before that, let me share, first of all, thank you to everyone who has joined today's session on disaster loss and damage on this auspicious day of Guru Purnima. I would like to share that let us remember that learning is two-way street. Future leaders and young minds continue to teach us how to respond to climate risk more wisely and justly. With this, I would like to invite our first future leader, Arkonil Ghosh, who is a multilingual youth leader, fluent in many languages, and is having high interest in the climate change related actions. Since 2020, he has been an active ADN junior champion, raising awareness on preventable, avoidable deaths, and is the founding editor of the Junior Champion magazine. As being first, he's going to talk about the loss aspect. Over to you, Kosh.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vishal. So I'll begin by mentioning that the ADN Junior Champion, ISSN number 27590830, that's our ISSN number, and we have published 3 issues between 2023 and 2025. And across these 3 volumes, there are 26 articles which have been written by 26 unique authors. And these authors represent 3 countries: India, Bangladesh, and Malawi. The age range of these contributors span from 8 to 21 years. The magazine focuses on the perspectives of children and youths regarding natural hazard disasters, with specific attention to evidence of loss and damage experienced directly by the authors. The disasters described in the articles include the Indian floods of 2023, Cyclone Freddy in Malawi in 2023, Cyclone Remal in Bangladesh in 2024, and a series of floods in Malawi occurring between 2020 and 2024. These events include both sudden onset and prolonged hazard scenarios, all related to floods, cyclones, and heavy storms. Out of these 26 authors, 10 are from urban areas and 16 are from rural locations. Urban contributors are primarily from India and Malawi, while the rural ones are mainly based in Bangladesh and Malawi. Now let's talk about loss. So, loss refers to the total or partial destruction, damage, or deprivation of physical, economic, social, cultural, and environmental assets and services due to a hazardous event. The types of loss reported include human casualties, livestock mortality, environmental degradation, crop failure, and educational disruption. For example, one of the authors, Mr. Davison from Malawi, reported in Volume 3 that two of his siblings died. Another author, Angad from India, wrote in Volume 1 that people died in landslides. Tawaf, another author from Bangladesh, reported in Volume 2 that cattle, goats, and fish in ponds were lost. One more author from Bangladesh too stated that her community lost forests along with birds, medicinal plants, and fresh air. And at last, another author also wrote in Volume 1 that he could not appear for his half yearly examination. And finally, Dorothy from Malawi also reported in Volume 3 that floods destroyed crops, resulting in famine and food insecurity in her community. That's it for loss from the perspective of future leaders in our Junior Champion magazine.
Thank you so much. You are really master. So thank you for all your active and very targeted intervention and efforts. Thank you so much. This really reflect importance of capturing and also promoting and strengthening through engagement of different authors and practitioners and researchers.
Yes.
With this, now would like to invite Ms. Pratna Datta. She is with having high interest in building climate change resilience, children's land-based learning activities, youth-led cross-cultural community gardens, and land-based arts activities. Over to you, Datta.
Thank you for the introduction. Since Arkunil talked about loss, I'll be talking about damage as seen in the 3 volumes of the Junior Champion magazines. So, damage refers to total or partial destruction of physical assets, the disruption of basic services, and damages to sources of livelihood in the affected area. The types of damage reported by the authors include destruction of homes, infrastructure, education materials, and public utilities. For example, an author named Aryaman Nath from India stated in Volume 1 that he lost his books. Anika, also from India in Volume 1, reported that her family was displaced and that heritage and infrastructure were destroyed. Angat Acharya from India noted that electrical poles had fallen. Tawaf al-Sani from Bangladesh reported in Volume 2 that roads were destroyed, and in Volume 3, Fate Matambwe from Malawi wrote that her school materials were gone and her neighbor's house had completely collapsed. Davison Makanjiria from Malawi stated that his house was destroyed and that roofs, including his aunt's, were torn off. He also noted that a deep tube well at a shelter was submerged. Another author from Malawi reported that 4 houses and a private hospital in her village had fallen. In conclusion, the 3 volumes of ADN Junior Champion magazine offer a consolidated youth-led account of loss and damage associated with natural hazard events in India, Bangladesh, and Malawi between 2020 and 2025. The data illustrates a wide range of impacts, including structural destruction, displacement, death, loss of livelihoods, and educational disruption. With 26 authors documenting first-hand experiences of floods, cyclones, and storms, the publication provides valuable qualitative evidence from vulnerable populations, often excluded from formal disaster assessments. These accounts contribute to a clearer understanding of the localized consequences of climate-related events, underscoring the need for responsive policy and support mechanisms targeted at children and youth in disaster-prone regions. Thank you.
Thanks to you, really, thank you for taking out these facts and figures, really important. And that's what, we and also all the participants now well understand about loss and damage. aspect, and that is also linked with what Dr. Nivedita and Professor Anil Gupta shared, that what is increasing and where we are able to get success. And that is reflect, based on what you shared, it is reflect the importance of adaptation. So let's welcome and request Mr. Yunus Abu Al-Wafa, who is co-leads Safer Odisha, securing agriculture from environmental risk. He has experience in civil protection, emergency response, and disaster risk reduction. Wow, thank you so much. You are doing a lot of things at this age and really encouraging us. Over to you. Please share your perspective about adaptation and its limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishal. Yes, to give a little more background, I'm also just finishing my master's in humanitarian action now. And together with my experience previously working in India with rural farmers facing livelihood insecurities, this really shaped my perspective on loss and damages and made me interested in the topic and made me want to explore it a bit more. So when starting to research loss and damages, the literature always gave it as our third pillar next to adaptation and mitigation. So when impacts can't be mitigated anymore and there is no adaptation method, then loss and damages have to be compensated for. So this is extremely important, especially since most usually the vulnerable populations are the ones affected most and require this compensation. But it also ties into the concept of where do we see the limit to adaptation. So sometimes we see adaptation as something that is impossible, but often it's also something that is not being done because of lack of resources, lack of governance, also other reasons that are not very clear, and there's no clear defined line on that. And while working in India, I experienced this firsthand. So working with farmers that are facing droughts, direct impacts from climate change and erratic rainfall, unpredictable seasons, when doing focus groups together, they always got a lot of inputs in possible adaptation methods, like for example, wells or canals being built. But these would be huge investments, huge public investments, and they are often not seen as feasible. And instead, farmers were compensated, for example, for the ability to buy crops for next year or subsidies to decrease hunger, but it didn't really change the underlying problem that climate change impact leads to in these areas. So here, in my eyes, loss and damages aren't supposed to be doing that, or they're not supposed to be focusing on that. And this is one of the core challenges I see with loss and damages. So coming from an academic background in humanitarian action that focuses mainly on meeting urgent need in short term, and loss and damages can't copy that. On the contrary, it should be intended to be more ambitious and translate the response from climate change into adaptation opportunities, and can be more long-term and can be also more political, unlike humanitarian action. So this is one of the key strengths with loss and damages, especially as we just heard, it also focuses on non-economic losses. And if these are integrated into the feasibility studies, which in India, in our experience, they were not enough, then these would change this equation and maybe lead to more sustainable solutions being done through loss and damages mechanisms, not just compensation for current losses. So from my perspective, emerging in this field, I think it's important to keep in mind that adaptation and mitigation are the long-term sustainable solutions, that we have to see how we can achieve mitigation and adaptation through the use of loss and damage mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you. I really like what you said about adaptation opportunity instead of challenges, and our, the way and our approach to deal with loss and damage and many other climate change related challenges. Thank you so much. And all this to do, we require very good and effective on-time communication efforts. And for that, would like to invite Mr. Asad Tahir Chapa, who is an award-winning doctoral researcher and specialist in strategic leadership and crisis communication. And he is the founder and president of the Sustainable Leadership Forum. We are very much looking for and welcoming you. Over to Mr. Chapa.
Thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity. Since I'm doing my research here at University of Leicester in my year 3, and the areas that I'm investigating are leadership, crisis communication, and disinformation, and the role that disinformation can play during any crisis, be it a natural disaster or a public emergency. So there are 3 points that I'm going to make. One is the role of leadership during a crisis. 2, how disinformation can be combated, and how disinformation can further compound a crisis. And 3, the role of a resilient and robust internal communication system within an organization that can always predict a crisis and then play its robust and resilient part to mitigate the possible loss and damage during a crisis situation, be it a natural disaster or a public emergency. As we all understand that every crisis turns spotlight on the leadership, because be it citizens or public at large or the stakeholders, they get into a storm or a panic situation, and they're looking towards leaders to take urgent but informed decisions. This is what literature on the subject is very, very clear. At the same time, the flip side, which goes in tandem, is that the bluff merchants on social media particularly are always looking for an opportunity to capitalize, and they push and peddle disinformation, willfully causing panic amongst people, and the fake news or misinformation or disinformation causes huge panic amongst people. So thereby, the role of leadership to make urgent, reliable, and truthful decisions based on truthful information is very, very important. And they need to be sharing through a resilient and robust communication system that they have already put in place within their organizations to not only calm the storm, but also to take measures which can mitigate, which can, for example, during monsoon, heavy rains, or possible floods, they can always identify vulnerable communities in the river delta where people could be evacuated. They could be shared alerts, and particularly in their own languages, where people can understand, for example, Urdu or Punjabi, so they can use unconventional or conventional means of reaching out to the target vulnerable population and evacuate them well in time. And then if there is a sudden surge of a flash flood, for example, and they have a resilient system in place of reaching out to the stakeholders, coordinating efforts, and saving precious human lives. Recently, only 2 weeks before, in Swat, an unfortunate family from a district of Sialkot, who were there visiting Swat on holidays with their children, have been swept away. A family of 15 people were having breakfast early in the morning on the bank of river, rather in the delta of River Swat, when all of a sudden, because of rains and melting of glaciers and ice up in the northern areas, a flash flood encircled that family in no time. And unfortunately, that family of 15 were praying and requesting for evacuation and for saving their lives for good 90 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes. But no one came to their rescue. And people are only watching, filming their vulnerable positions, while children were screaming, elderly were requesting, but people were only watching from a distance. So that is how, when you don't have a plan ready, when you're not ready for crisis communication, when you're not engaging your stakeholders and agencies and organizations, you can't save precious human lives, and the collateral damage and loss can be beyond proportion. So my research, as well as the insights that I've gathered from 45 informants during my recent data collection from Pakistan, senior civil servants who are responsible to deal with crisis and emergency situations. The research establishes and the informed insights that a resilient and robust communication system is of paramount importance to mitigate the loss and damage during any emergency, be it natural disaster or a public emergency, and effective and proactive communication during an emergency situation is and cannot be overemphasized.
Thank you so much. Yes, really, thank you for sharing this, and we appreciate that you have covered up this very important, crucial aspect of communication. If risk-informed communication happen, then what can be done? I mean, very much, better approach to invest more in anticipatory action rather than dealing with loss and damage and post-disaster emergency or post-conflict situation. Thank you. Now, I would like to invite our Eduardo, who is co-leads SAFO Odisha, Securing Agriculture from Environment Risk, and he holds MSc in International Economics and European Studies from ISEG, Lisbon School of Economics and Management. And after all this communication importance and its strategy and adaptation limits, he is going to share his perspective on policy aspect with us. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Vishal. Thank you to the Avoidable Deaths Network to giving me the opportunity to present my insights on this matter. So my name is Eduardo Cardoso, and in 2024, together with Eunice and Lauren as well, we were in India working under the Safer Odisha project, which was a local initiative that was assisting vulnerable farmer communities to build resilience to climate extremes. And in the field, while we were working in the field, we have witnessed how floods, droughts, wipe out crops and end up erode the dignity and trap families in cycles of poverty. But these realities often clash with the global frameworks we use to assess vulnerability and how we will allocate resources for loss and damage. And today I will focus my participation on this international policy side. So in my recent research, I compared the major vulnerability indices used under climate finance and loss and damage fund frameworks. And these indices are often used as evidence-based tools to inform climate policy and finance, as I told. And what I found is a paradox. While these methodologies often use structured assessments, they often yield inconsistent or even conflicting results. For example, on which countries are more vulnerable or not in terms of loss and damage. So, and this is a critical challenge in my opinion. So, for example, if one index ranks, for example, Maldives as a highly vulnerable country in terms of loss and damage, and another index does not, the funding allocation becomes arbitrary. If one methodology measures exposure but ignores adaptive capacity or social marginalization of certain communities inside the population, entire communities fall through the cracks. And these traditional methodologies tend to focus on national level economic losses, as some of my colleagues already looked in this session. But sometimes they overlook non-economic losses, for example, cultural heritage, human displacement, mental health impacts, as well as the subnational disparities, especially among rural, coastal, and indigenous communities, and intersectional vulnerabilities, like those faced by women, youth, and informal workers. And that's a problem. Because when methodologies fail to reflect lived experiences, loss and damage policies risk becoming technocratic and not transformative. Of course, we have an opportunity because evidence-based approaches can work if they are grounded in inclusive and multidimensional frameworks. And my research highlights three key opportunities. First, we can do a triangulation of indices using multiple methodologies together, for example, quantitative and qualitative, that can balance biases and improve accuracy. Then we also should look to contextual calibration. We should integrate local data and community knowledge into vulnerability scoring, like me and my colleagues did in India in the vulnerability assessments we conduct in Orissa. And third, we should redefine loss. So we should expand our indicators to include social, cultural, and ecological impacts, not just GDP metrics and economic measures. So as future leaders, we must go behind using data for justification. We must demand better data for taking in account climate justice as well. Because the goal of evidence isn't just measurement. It's to make sure that the right support reaches the right people, the most that are more exposed, the most that are more vulnerable, at the right time. So these are my insights that I would like to share with you. I'm open for questions and thank you so much.
Thank you, Eduardo. Really interesting, and thank you for your interest and your efforts in this research work. And also, you touch very well important point about the better data. The data is, data-driven decision-making aspect in loss and damage is very crucial. More and more efforts is required. To all participants, this is the reason why ADN is saying we must engage youth. They are innovators. With this, would also like to share that the COP28 decision, including the operationalization of loss and damage fund, is really very important step. How they can be made to work for those exposed on the front line of climate risk is important, and these are the important aspect. Number one, understand how we must build our understanding on loss and damage that we understood, and then it is also about pushing the agenda of adaptation more actively and with strong risk communication aspect. And of course, we also require stronger governance aspect, and for that, policy support is very much important. With this, I would like to hand over to Professor Anil Gupta.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so thank you, Professor Nivedita and Mr. Vishal. The two sessions have been very, I think, very time effective, and those would bring the key points on the discussion table. And what we could realize that our future leaders, wherein most of the speakers were the young researchers, actually they have very deep-rooted thinking now. So that's very important because each and every speaker brought the points based on the critical analysis based on their own experience and insight. And Vishalji they chaired this session and coordinated in a very, very effective way. And thank you, Vishalji, for this. And five speakers, Mr. Ghosh, Arkonil Ghosh. So basically, what he discussed is a very innovative and very effective initiative. The kind of magazine that he is running, because we need many more leaders to join this initiative, to think, to start undertaking various kind of research, not necessarily highly organized research, but a kind of flexible type of research also, to find out that what are the fundamental causes that can lead to loss and damage, including the injuries, including the deaths, including the damage to infrastructure. So that's very important. That the magazine is very popular, and it's being run by the children and youth. So that's very important. In fact, that is one step even ahead, that childrens are there involved. And second presentation was by Prarthana, and Prarthana hit very correctly and very aptly on the facts and figures, because loss and damage is about the measurements, loss and damage is about the monitoring, loss and damage is about the assessments, and there in fact the facts and figures matters a lot. And we have been discussing that the baseline information is very important. Yunus, he had quite adequate experience, and that reflected in his deliberation, that what kind of investment that we should see to address loss and damage. So it should be more anticipatory action, and this anticipatory action should be planned in a way that it recognizes well adequately the non-economic loss and damage. Mr. Tahir, very important aspect that was regarding the risk communication. In fact, one study that we did in India, covering 2 cyclones, there we tried to understand that what actually went wrong despite of the effective early warning, the well in advance early warning. If there are deaths, it means something went wrong, maybe at the level of individual, at the level of the last mile. So what actually are the important things of the last mile connectivity even? So that's also very important. And the last but not the least, Eduardo in fact touched upon very important aspect, because we need to organize these important facets of addressing loss and damage through a policy regime. And particularly now even we are talking about the flooding in Texas. So these kind of extreme events are now witnessed by the developing nations, by the least developed countries, but also the developed countries and developed cities also. So that's also very important, that how do we look at the gaps in the methodologies and improve the methodologies. And the last thing I would touch upon, that which emerged from this discussion about the decision support system. So that is important. And so both aspects are important, like what kind of baseline data we should have, the baseline information that should have, so that what has been the incremental impact or incremental damage or losses that can be assessed. So this session has been very, very rich in this way, by the contributions from the young and the learned future leaders of this group. And in fact, now I hope that there are some questions coming. So, no, I don't see any questions, but yes. Are there any questions? Would anyone will help me if I am able to see or not?
Yeah,
I
there are
don't see.
no, Professor Gupta, there are no questions at the moment.
There are no questions, but if the audience have any questions, so they can raise their hand, they can unmute themselves and then tell their question. And if they want, they can direct their question to a particular speaker, or to a chair, or a panelist, or a generic question, so that we can identify that who can respond.
And if someone is unable to, they can just write the question in the chat and we can convey those
Yes.
questions. Sure.
Yes, yes. So anyone in the audience? And if
Hello.
audience, yes, please.
Hi, I'm Sriram Kesi speaking from Nepal. I work for Plan International. I'm particularly interested to hear from Japa. I noted the name. He was talking about
Yeah.
the resilience and robust communication system for crisis response. I would be much more benefited if he could little explain more about how was the resilient communication system in the practice, and what sort of communication means was used during that crisis communication, because these today mostly people use social media as a digital. Is there any particular that you could refer? That would be really helpful for us. Thank you.
Very interesting question. Should I request you, Mr. Tahir Zapa, to reflect upon this?
Yeah, thank you very much for raising this very important question. I mean, coming from public sector in Pakistan, my understanding and my experience about the use of social media is a very cautious and at times very reluctant approach towards handling social media. There is no policy about the use of social media by civil servants or public servants as yet, because there is a very thin line between when you talk of regulating social media and the fake news and information peddled on social media, and also the citizens' right to express themselves freely. So in this ambivalence, the government in Pakistan and state institutions are still not very clear about the policy, but the practices on the ground and the experiences that I had by interacting with my informants, it proves, as does literature, that when it comes to social media, and it is normally understood that social media is the main vehicle of fake news and disinformation, the evidence also establishes that if public sector institutions and organizations leverage the same social media handles for propagation, sharing timely information through verified platforms, it could turn the table on disinformation, and it could rather help individual civil servants in leadership roles and organization dealing with crisis situations to share timely and truthful information in no time to the vulnerable communities. So social media, when it comes to a critique, is being criticized mostly for being the platform that proliferates or contributes to disinformation. But literature and experience from the field suggest otherwise, that if social media is effectively used as an instrument of sharing truthful information to citizens and stakeholders, it could become an instrument of bridging trust deficit, combating disinformation, engaging with citizens and stakeholders, and also at the same time minimizing and controlling the collateral damage and loss during emergencies and public disaster. So the moral of the story is that time has come to embrace social media as a new reality, build a resilient information system, and organizations are doing it. They have already constituted dedicated teams within their offices who monitor regularly everything that is being shared on social media. They clarify and rebut where needed, and they take necessary action where required. And thus, they are, through that dedicated media cell, not only combating disinformation where needed, but also leveraging relevant information where action is necessary to take timely action, using citizens as their eyes and ears, and thus bridge the trust deficit and convert the same people who criticize government as their drum beaters and as their brand ambassadors through effective use of social media.
Thank you, Ms. Tahir. You explained very well. And that is very important because in different countries, there are a lot of different experiences about social media, because social media has a lot of strength, but there are challenges are also associated. So very important that we need a clear-cut policy and a strategy to utilize social media for this, because it has a lot of potentials. I can see one more question from Vinay Arya. He is from ICARS, IIT-Roorkee. Vinay, would you like to use mic and tell your question? Vinay? Or I would read his question. How can the use of advanced technologies help to mitigate and adapt to disaster management in an efficient manner? So he has not pointed his question to any particular speaker. I would leave it open, and I think should I ask Eduardo? Would you like to respond on this?
Yes, can you just repeat because my connection was
Yes,
not that good.
I will repeat. Ms. Vinay Arya has asked, how can the use of advanced technologies help to mitigate and adapt to disaster risk in an efficient manner? He's talking about basically what are the policy interventions to promote the advanced technologies that we can think of.
Yes, of course. I agree. Like that's one of the priorities and consensual frameworks we are getting from international climate negotiations. And also when we talked about anticipatory action, early warning systems, it's always smarter to invest on prevention measures using advanced technology than to invest on responsive measures to the loss and damage. So yeah, I guess that's a strategy that should be supported for and by every government in terms of climate policy, national frameworks, and as well to apply it to the loss and damage negotiations and at the international level.
Yeah, thank you, Eduardo. In fact, you referred about the decision support system. So basically, there is a huge engagement of advanced technologies for that, so that it can help provide precisions. Thank you for your
thank you so much
answer to this question. So should I look at the other participant if they have any question? Please feel free. You can raise question, or if the participants are not raising a question, the question is coming to my mind to the future leaders. Professor Nivedita, am I allowed to ask question?
Sure, you're allowed.
Yeah. Oh, and in fact, I am so excited because the kind of points our future leaders have brought on the forum, and if we all just integrate all the points, we really think that they are thinking little ahead of the current experience, that and because the risk regime is changing very dynamically. Every year we find that new risks are coming. So a question to the future leaders, and I would say that they can respond in a very sharp, maybe few seconds. That how are they basically going to the basically share this the research outcomes that they are into this. Certainly the magazine is one thing. That is a very important tool. But other leaders, how do they think that the new kind of risk that is coming? Because there are certain kind of risks which are known, but each year we think that the new kind of disasters are coming. Like in the South Asia region now, dust storms sometimes is being recognized as one of the important thing. The 10 years back, the heat wave was not considered as a disaster. Now it is one of the biggest challenge in this region. And it is not only in this part of the world, but many other countries also facing. The wildfire is also emerging as a major challenge. Australia fire, then the California fire. So how do they look at these kind of challenges of varying scales, the small scales as well as the large scale loss and damage? So may I request the future leaders to quickly respond? Maybe should I request to Prarthana, because she has been talking about the facts and figures. And then maybe I may also request to Yunus.
I think that as a youth, we need to learn more about climate change and learn from the people who are knowledgeable about the land, so then we can learn about our roles and responsibilities to the land, so we can respect the land to reduce climate change, since it is a climate change creates human created disasters, which we have seen in the magazine, like floods, storms. It's all human created. So if we understand our roles and responsibilities towards the land, I feel like we can take better care of the land and treat it as part of our bodies. And so it'll just be a better earth that we can all live in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I add something? Dr. Gupta, can I add something?
Yes. Arkanil, please. And
Thank
then I
you.
will go to Yunus. Yeah.
This is more focused on the magazine. So, in addition to what Pratana said, our magazine is more focused on the storytelling. So, basically, it's children who are 10 or 11 years old, and as expected, they will not really speak about data and all that, or like crucial things. They will speak about what really matters to them, such as loss of books, loss of toys. One of them even mentioned loss of siblings. So the storytelling is what creates awareness, and that's what our magazine is doing. It's acting as a catalyst to do that.
I think very interesting. So it's a print version or an audio version also?
No, not audio yet. It's print,
Because when you told
but
about
of
stories,
course,
then it came to my mind that can we think of a blended version having audio also, like
Future.
the
yes,
like the Harry Potter
we
magazine.
can
In Harry
definitely,
Potter, we used to see their newspapers, so those kind of
indeed,
things. Indeed.
indeed.
Anyway, very interesting. So, should I move to now the sides from Yunus?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's really interesting that we get this opportunity to present our perspectives here, our research, and what we think of the topic as it's informed by a maybe different perspective than long-term practitioners, and then we can discuss it in a setting like this, where our ideas maybe inspire some further ideas then, or some changes in practice. And then I think it's also important that we keep in mind that while we are doing the research, that disasters are avoidable and that we shouldn't take them for granted, and that this research can translate into and should translate into adaptation or into mitigation measures that really change. So we should also keep in mind that this should be connected to practice and shouldn't only like be part of a webinar, but then also go hopefully further and constitute some change down the line.
Thank you, Yunus. In fact, Orissa is we can say that one of the real living lab of the disaster experience. While it brings a great story of learning to effectively plan anticipatory action for uh, preventing, reducing loss and damage, but it has also brought a lot of experience of or understanding about the infrastructure preparedness or infrastructure resilience also. I recall one incident in cyclone. Funny that the some women were brought to the hospital, and then during cyclone period, and then the pipe connecting the water tank, basically overhead water tank, got blown away in the wind, and then all the water was inside the hospital wards, and there was no water supply for a few days, and then the power also got disconnected. So I think these are many literal things we need to look at, that how really we need to capture at loss and damage. So there are direct aspects, but there are indirect impacts also. So that is also very important that we can understand. In fact, Gujarat also brings a lot of examples of effectively anticipatory action. The Ahmedabad heat action plan was the first one. In fact, that set a stage that how a heat action plan can be prepared. So I think very good insights have come from various speakers from this session. Now I would pass on to Dr. Nivedita for suggesting the next session. Over to you, Dr. Nivedita. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Professor Gupta. I think we have come to our concluding session, and that is over to Hideyuki to run the post-poll and then conclude the session. But otherwise, many thanks to yourself, Vishal, and our wonderful future leaders. Brilliant ideas. Hideyuki, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, yes, this is the second the poll. So please participate the second poll. Thank you. %, okay. Thank you. This is the result. So nearly 60% of the participants
Very good.
very confident. So yes. Okay, thank you. Right. So, Nivedita, am I expected to say something about the session?
Just close the session. That's it. Thank everyone and close the session.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much for joining this interesting session today. So yes, as many speakers, touched upon loss and damage in the third of the three responses to climate change. I think this is quite important. Yeah. So it's So
I think there is one question. So we have another session. Our end of the year session will be on 13th of October. We usually, let me check whether 13th of October is Saturday or Sunday. If it is not a
Monday,
Saturday,
Dr. Nivedita, 13th October is Monday.
So Monday will be our last special session for this year. Unless there is something else that comes up, we might do it. But usually our special sessions are scheduled a few months in advance. So 13th October, Sri Ram. So if you're interested in listening to our next session, we will promote the information. We haven't decided the details yet. We're still keeping an eye on the website to see what is the theme for this DRR this year. And then we will bring the relevant speakers. However, there are a few other things that will take place in between. I think, Julia, this is an opportunity for you to maybe unmute and just say a few words, because I know you are trying to do on-demand content and you will be interviewing one of our members and post it on social media, isn't it? I think it's for 5 minutes, this on-demand content.
Hi, yes. So we will be having these episodes with speakers from around the ADN universe, and we'll probably start with them by the end of August. So we'll have the first one by the end of August, or maybe the first week of September. And it'll be 25-minute sessions with speakers discussing really their expertise on the topics of disaster risk and loss and damage. Thank you.
Thank you. I think with this note, we can conclude this session. So thank you very much.
One thing. So yes, yeah, I wanted to say is
Oh,
so the
okay, go
Japan.
on.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, so the Japanese government is currently discussing the how to say establishment of a disaster prevention agency. So the key phrase of this establishment is the serious disaster preparedness. So this is the kind of keyword for establishing disaster prevention agency in Japan. So this encompasses not just completely preventing disasters, but also preventing, but also reducing, the impact beforehand and reducing the impact afterward. So I feel, today's discussion is very much, related to this establishment of Japanese disaster prevention agency. So yes, in this light, so that this loss and damage is not only for low and middle income country or developing country, but also all over all country in the world. I feel. So thank you very much for giving us a very very interesting insight and your perspective today. Yeah, thank you very much for joining this great session today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.